Hello and welcome to the Achieve Today podcast. My name is Jake Mix, and today we are with one of our coaches here at Achieve Today, Miss Olivia Atkinson, who's been with us for quite a number of years now, but a coach more recently. And we're really excited to talk to you today, Olivia. Thank you for coming by and being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today we're going to be talking about something that is a very serious topic, but we feel like it could be helpful for some of you, helpful for all of us at times. But we're going to be talking about depression. And first and foremost, if you are struggling with feelings of depression, please know that there are resources and you should never be ashamed of what you are feeling. There's therapists, there's professional help that you can get, and we urge you to take that action. The advice that we'll be giving today, or Olivia will be giving, is more out of personal experience, and it's just something that we've learned together. And so we're excited to be able to talk a little bit about this because I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially in this day and age, as it's becoming more and more people are comfortable talking about it, which I love personally. Yeah. But let's get into this, kind of how to get out of this state when you get into one of these cycles, which can happen so easily. So let's first off, can you just give an introduction, a little bit of the topic, why you felt like this was really important to talk about, especially with everything that has been going on in your life? And
right.
Yeah.
So, with depression, it's kind of been amidst all the recent things in the news, it's kind of the hidden pandemic that's going on. With a lot of the changes in the world, a lot of the alone time, people are having to face some of their inner demons, so to speak. So a lot of people all around are struggling with phases of depression, clinical depression, what have you. And I saw a quote today that made me realize that there's a major significance in bringing this topic up. So it's by Rajneesh. He says, sadness gives depth, happiness gives height, sadness gives roots, happiness gives branches. Happiness is like a tree going into the sky, and sadness is like the roots going down into the womb of the earth. Both are needed, and the higher a tree goes, the deeper it goes. Simultaneously, the bigger the tree, the bigger it will be in its roots. In fact, it is always in proportion that it's balance. So I really like that quote because a lot of the time when someone is stuck in a depression, it's all negative. It's all negative, baby. It's really heavy and it can be difficult to find meaning. And so I really like that quote because it shows that when you go through a depression, there can be a benefit. It creates a quality of depth. So I'm going to ask you, have you ever experienced a depression?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's it like?
It's interesting. Something that you just mentioned is sometimes it feels all negative, right? Yeah. There's times where, and it's weird because you get into it and you feel like there's no way out, right? You're stuck in a rut and there's no positive side. And I think it can happen easily with, when things are positive too. It feels like everything's going to go right. But in depression, it feels especially heavy because of that. You're not sure where to go. It's tough feeling some of those things that you're feeling. And sometimes it just feels like it's trapped in your body and you can't get rid of it.
That's a good one, saying that it's trapped in your body, because that's definitely what it feels like. It kind of reminds me of, when you go to a park and it's covered in trash, sometimes you forget that it's a beautiful park because there's Capri Sun wrappers everywhere,
Yep.
And so sometimes the big thing is getting the willpower to clean up the trash, so to speak. That might be a little bit of a harsh term to view it with.
Yeah.
But so I struggled with depression a little bit when I was a teenager. And then I got into law of attraction, and it was just a flip of the switch. Hadn't really struggled with it since, at least not in a long period. I think we all go through depressions pretty naturally, but it's tricky when it's a cycle. It's months on end where you can't really get out of it. So recently, when the winter months came in Utah, I experienced a little bit of a depression. And I'm a coach, and I experienced a little bit of a depression. Yeah. And I didn't know how to get out of it. And I kept kind of choosing what was comfortable. So watching New Girl on Netflix for hours on end wasn't really getting me the serotonin that I needed. And so it felt good in the moment, but it was very habitual. And I started eating less quality foods, and my sleep schedule started falling apart. And it reminds me a lot like quicksand, where it's just one thing after another, you get deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
What I will say, though, is during that time period, I got to know some difficult parts of myself that I hadn't seen in a long time. I noticed a very tender part of myself, a very loving part of myself, because when I was experiencing, that intensity of pain, it just made me want to extend kindness to people in all forms, be extra kind to the cashier at the grocery store. It just really created a tenderness that I hadn't encountered in a long time. However, it got to a point where I was like, okay, something needs to change. I'm not going anywhere. It's like you said, in your body. I think when you've reached the point where it just feels really icky in your body, it's time to hop out.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I did is, and it takes a lot of willpower when you're in that place. It's like being, again, in quicksand. If you're deep in quicksand, it's going to take a lot of energy to get up and get out. So what I started to do is I'd stopped going to the gym for a while, with the holidays. Running on cheesecake wasn't exactly adequate fuel for the gym.
Yeah.
But after the holidays, one day when I realized that it was just getting heavy and I needed to come out of it, I pushed myself with all the willpower that I had to go to the gym. And I didn't even do a proper full workout, but I did some cardio, I just got some energy out. And instead of fixating at the gym on, needing to get a better body or anything like that, I just focused on releasing energy, just being present and letting my body move. And what I found right afterwards was I felt this relief that I hadn't felt in months. And it was raining. And so I spun around in circles in the parking lot. I jumped in puddles, and it reminded me that there's this other experience available to you. And that's the difficult thing with depression, is that we forget that we are capable of feeling a different way. It's totally blocks out, it's blind spots, right?
Yep.
So sometimes really what we need is just an experience that reminds us that there's more. Because you might have, you might see positive quotes and hear all these cognitive thought processes that can help you feel more, maybe a little hopeful, but it's different from an actual experience that makes you feel better, right?
Yep.
So for you personally, when you were a little kid, what did you like to do? For fun.
I remember as a little kid, I would always work on something. Like, I always had a project I was working on. So I remember one. Here's just an experience for you.
Okay.
I remember one time, and I don't even remember why I was doing it, but I learned how to make a paper airplane.
Right.
And I remember I was like so enamored by a paper airplane that I went upstairs. I took like 100 pieces of paper and I folded 100 paper planes. And I remember I came down to my parents. I'm like, look at all these. And they were so proud of me, right? But so I would say, like, with that, just like a lot of different projects, and I just love like working on different things, love working on things that bring me passion, especially, which was building things. I love building things. Is that one for you? Is that good?
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. So what I'd say the first thing to do is something that requires a lot of willpower. So like going to the gym, or it could be, if you're in school, writing a paper you've been putting off, just doing one thing that shows yourself you can do it. You can do hard things.
Yeah.
And then accompanying it with something playful. So I always like to go back with anybody, especially with clients, asking them what they like to do as a kid. Because generally that's the sweet spot. So I bet, if you were in a depression, making some paper airplanes, goodness gracious, that would be, your system would be like, yes, I've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
I've been waiting 10 years to start making paper airplanes again. And for me, jumping in puddles was something that I didn't know, but my inner child has been dying to do for a long time.
Yeah.
And it reminded me that there are great feelings and great experiences to be had. And then after that, it's mustering up the willpower to keep doing those, and then you can create a new cycle that actually supports you and benefits what you are aspiring for. Now, circling back to that quote about the benefit of sadness is finding meaning in that experience. So in order to maintain coming out of the quicksand, you want to add meaning to the experience. And so what I decided to do was bring in this new tenderness that I learned. I reflected on first what I learned and then incorporated it into my daily life. So I didn't need this heavy sadness anymore to remind me how to be tender because I had this experience. And so I set an intention on a daily basis to, use willpower and engage in things that nourish me, etc., but also to bring in this newfound tenderness. And what I found is that my life felt more complete and well-rounded overall.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So when you're in that depression, again, I think there's another thing that's really important too, and a lot of people dive into isolation, right?
Yeah.
They think that they have to do it alone, and they think that, or they may think that they're a burden, and a series of limiting beliefs come up. And so if you have access to the coaching team here, we will do a clearing to help process some of that emotion that's stuck, right? But I think that it's really important to get back into your body, right? And to cultivate a sense of gratitude overall.
So Olivia, you talked about kind of these experiences for you, exercise, right? Kind of getting you, and I've felt that as well, right? When I've been in a state, and sometimes it's been a couple weeks where things just don't seem to go right? And it's like you're in this rut and you're having a hard time getting out. Exercise has helped me too. So you talk about this concept of kind of getting into your body, right? Or getting back into your body, right?
Right.
And getting back to a place, of movement and exercise. Can you explain a little bit more about that? What's your advice? And maybe just go a little bit more in depth.
Right. Well, so exercise definitely did the trick because I was so in my head. I kind of forgot I had a body. I think of our bodies like it's our home. It's our home. And so you mentioned earlier, we were talking about this earlier, a Jim Carrey quote, right?
Yep.
So what was that quote?
Yeah, so and I'm going to paraphrase this because, he does a much better job of it than I do. But he said something, I believe that everyone struggles with some kind of depression. Like depression is very real. But he also said, I believe you're not really giving yourself a true and fair shot if you're not exercising regularly, if you're not eating right, if you're not doing some kind of mindfulness practice. He goes into like 6 or 7 things. And anyway, that was the quote. And I thought it was so relevant to this, right? Especially to this topic of, you're doing things to get out of it. So anyway, that was the quote.
Right. That reminds me. So in Utah, the winter months are pretty intense. We often get a lot of snow.
Brutal.
And there was one time, I just hadn't checked in on my tires in a while. I just was like, all is well. Wasn't checking in on it. And I was making a big, long drive through the canyon. It was about an hour away from where I live. And of course, I hit the roads right during a snowstorm. And it wasn't that bad, though. The roads weren't too intense, but my car was just not having it. And I couldn't figure out why. And then later that week, when I came home, I checked my tires and realized they were nearly bald. And so, I was getting really frustrated during the drive about my car, but I wasn't taking care of the machine, the thing that was helping me travel from one place to another. So in the same way, we forget that we have this body, this system, that in order to allow us to travel freely and lightly and joyously, it's got to be taken care of. And that's hard to say when you're in a depression, because you barely have energy to do those things. But, that's why it's important to start small. All I really did was just a run and a couple different workouts at the gym, and it did the trick again because it reminded myself that I could do that, and it helped me get back into my body. But really starting with the little things, taking time out of your week to work out once, or at least go on a walk, get into nature. That's a huge one, is getting out into nature when you're in a depression. Yeah. And another one is, feeding yourself fruit and vegetables. If you need to have some snacks too, that's okay. Take it easy when you're going through a depression, but start slowly. transitioning the things that you know your body needs. And then things like supplements are great too, because they support your brain, they help you get out of funks. Obviously, check with your doctor when it comes to supplements, but there are an abundance of resources you can use to help your body during a depression. And then the next thing is understanding that we have connection needs. I was diving into this a little bit earlier, but we want to isolate ourselves a lot when we fall into a depression because of all of our different fears that we have. And that's tricky because we do need each other. We're on this planet with each other for a reason. And it's difficult with the era that we live in right now to sometimes connect. So I encourage everyone to Zoom a friend. Something that I really like to do is I will pull up FaceTime and I'll have lunch with a friend. We don't even need to talk. If you're going through such a hard time that having a conversation is difficult, just ask a friend to eat lunch with you over FaceTime. Just having presence and remembering that there are other people here with you can make such a big difference in what you're feeling. And reaching out to family, if you don't have a sense of community, there are right now more than ever, there are an abundance of online community resources that you can reach out to. You can find pen pals, so you could actually send letters, you could send gifts to each other, and having something to look forward to is kind of tricking your brain chemistry as well. That's why online shopping works a little bit, because knowing that something great is coming soon can be helpful, but be careful with that one. Yeah. But there's also a lot of groups that you can find. So you could look up book clubs. You could look up, there are tons that are meeting over Zoom right now. There are things like Reddit. Sometimes certain social media platforms are difficult to find a sense of community on, but something as simple as posting a story saying you need some companionship. Yeah. Posting on a platform like TikTok and saying that you need some friends, you are struggling with something. TikTok's a great one because there is a huge community on there right now, especially in the personal development field, that is eager to help you. So we really live in such an abundant time, and if there's any message that I think we could convey today, it's that you're cared about, and there is an abundance of resources. It's hard. I know it's hard. It was tricky for me to come out of it, but you got it. You can do it. And if you really need, don't hesitate to reach out to professional help.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Well, and something I really loved about what you just said is all your ideas about community were very pandemic friendly too, right? Especially I feel like COVID, this whole pandemic has really brought on a whole nother set of issues that's just difficult, especially with people who are dealing with depression. So I really appreciate you going into those resources that we can do. Like you said, there's so much available today, so much technology that was not available even 10 years ago. And so it's really awesome that we at least have those.
I don't know how they did it in 1918.
Really? Really though.
Yeah.
Really though.
That's crazy.
Different time and era and yeah, probably way more difficult.
Yeah.
So
shout out to Zoom.
Yeah, it's Zoom. Honestly, we're grateful for them.
Yeah.
Well, Olivia, thank you so much. I know we haven't had a ton of time to talk about this, but I think you've given some really, really good and insightful tips for anyone who's going through it. Honestly, you're not alone if you are. This is something that's so common, especially in this day and age. And so reach out to the communities that are so readily available and willing to help. So that wraps up our topic for this week. Thank you so much for joining. If you'd like to learn more, if you'd like the chance to work with Olivia or another coach here at Achieve Today, go to our website, achievetoday.com, and you can fill out your information to get a free 45-minute consultation where we'll dive in. We'll compare you to where you are now to where you could be in the future. And so that's the really cool part about this. It's absolutely free. And we'll kind of see if you would be qualified to or really would want to work with a coach, someone who could give you some more advice regarding everything in your life. So thank you so much for joining, and we will talk to you soon. Woo. Woo. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you found value and you would like to hear more of what these coaches are saying each and every week, please subscribe to our channel so that you can continue to get these episodes. We hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.